The three sovereigns were also known as the three august ones, who were similar to demigods, would use their powers to improve the lives of the people. The heavenly sovereign, or Fu Shi, ruled for 18,000 years. The earthly sovereign, or Nu Hua, ruled for 11,000 years. And the human sovereign, or Shen Nong, ruled for 45,600 years. The five emperors were morally perfect, legendary kings. They were the Yellow Emperor Huang Di, Emperor Ku, Emperor Yao, and Emperor Shun. The Yellow Emperor is considered the ancestor of the Han Chinese in Chinese mythology. Legend has it that he had 4 heads to look in all directions, which allowed him to see everything that was happening on Earth. Zhuan Shu was the grandson of Huang Di. Emperor Ku was the great-grandson of Huang Di. Since he was fond of music, his musicians created many instruments. It is also said that he was the first to establish schools. Emperor Yao was the second son of Emperor Ku. Emperor Shun's reign was one of the longest in Chinese history. He was glorified as a Confucian philosopher and for his modesty. The Xia dynasty was the first historical dynasty in China. It can be dated back to 1600 BC. There were 13 generations and 16 emperors in the Xia dynasty. There are no written records from this dynasty, so there isn't much information about it. It was soon replaced by the Shang dynasty. The Shang dynasty was from 16th to 11th century BC. Some of the advancements and achievements of the Shang dynasty include the development and refining of the writing system, and had over 2,000 symbols. These were often written on silk, bamboo sticks, stones, bronze items, and bones. There were also many decorations and jewelry made from jade. Some of the technology during this time period include the yoke, harness, and spoked wheel. Along with these, bronze weapons, armors, and tools were also created. This time also developed the 12-month lunar calendar with 365 and 1/4 days. The Zhou dynasty was from 1046 BC to 772 BC. The idea of mandate of heaven originated from this dynasty. The Zhou dynasty was broken up Eastern and Western Zhou dynasties. The Eastern Zhou dynasty was divided into 2 major time periods, the Spring and Autumn period and the Warring States period. Each of these periods experienced major wars. The Warring States built many walls that helped fend off threats. Fun fact, the Zhou dynasty was the longest dynasty in Chinese history. Some of the major achievements during the Zhou dynasty were the development of Chinese philosophy, the invention of the compass, the invention of the kite, which is the oldest type of aircraft, establishment of feudalism, the beginnings of using gold and silver, the use of iron rather than bronze for tools and weapons, the development of irrigational technology, drainage, waterways, canals, and dams, the production of glass, the recording of astronomy and astronomical events, the creation of the first geographical maps, the discovery of magnetism, and many advancements in basic arithmetic, fractions, geometry, trigonometry, and other calculations. The Warring States period lasted through the Zhou dynasty, which ended, leading into the Qin dynasty. The Qin dynasty was the dynasty that unified the Chinese people for the first time in 221 BC. There was much criticism toward the imperial rule during the Qin dynasty. In order to stop this, the emperors banished many Confucian scholars. During the Qin dynasty, the country expanded into northern and southern frontiers. In order to protect themselves from barbarians, the walls that were built during the Warring States were connected to what is commonly known as the Great Wall. In 210 BC, the Qin emperor died and his dynasty ended. The Han Dynasty defeated the Qin army. This defeat was part of the rebellion that occurred after the Qin emperor's death. The Han Dynasty continued the tradition from the Qin, but slowly incorporated Confucian ideals back into the culture. During this dynasty, a civil service exam was initiated. Two of the great Chinese inventions, paper and porcelain, date from the Han times. The Silk Road became big during this dynasty. The Hans had a growing population and increasing wealth, and the empire was unable to keep up with these changes and it eventually collapsed. The Qin dynasty was a short-lived dynasty that only contributed to the split in China. The dynasties that branched from the Qin were the Shi, Han, and Dong Han. The Wei dynasty is the most powerful of the northern Chinese dynasties. The Wei dynasty was founded by Tabach. He was a nomad that inhabited the northern frontier of China. Their language was basically Turkish, and their scholars traced ancestry back to Turkey. Military was all this dynasty really had. Shu Han, commonly known as the Shu, appeared during the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty. Liu Bei, a warlord, started to conquer what was left of the Han. Much of the Shu period was tarnished with war, but during periods of peace, the Shu started many irrigation and road building projects designed to improve the economy. Sun Wu, commonly known as the Wu, had control of southeastern China. Under the reign of Sun Quan, migrants from the north increased manpower in agriculture in the lower part of Wu. Under rule of the Wu, the Yangtze River developed into one of the commercial, cultural, and political centers of China. The Jin dynasty has two divisions, the first being Western Jin and the second Eastern Jin. Western Jin was founded by Sima Yan, while the Eastern Jin was founded by Sima Ru. The combination of the two Jin dynasties are called the Eastern and 16 Kingdoms. The Jin dynasty is well known for the quality of its grain ceramic-like porcelain. These jars often had designs of animals or Buddhist figures. The Sui dynasty didn't come around until 270 years after the Jin. Though the Sui was shortly lived, it worked well to achieve economic prosperity. The Sui dynasty fell when the last emperor, Yang, abused his power and success and never really fulfilled his duty as emperor, leaving the country in the hands of a general named Li Yuan. Emperor Yang was eventually murdered, and Li Yuan declared himself emperor. This marked the beginning of the Tang dynasty. The Tang dynasty had a rocky beginning. It was established during a time of chaos, the tyranny and rebellions from the Sui dynasty. Li Yuan quickly strengthened the nation again, making the country prosper more than ever before. China excelled in agriculture, social balance, and international affairs. This dynasty was the most influential of the modern world. Medicine is one of the highest contributions of the Tang Dynasty. Some of the techniques created then are still practiced around the world today. The creation of gunpowder took off along with inventing better agricultural technology. By the time the third generation of emperors came along, an empress took control and overthrew the Tang Dynasty by calling her 15 years of reign the Zhou Dynasty. There were 5 dynasties, one after another, that appeared in northern China, while in the south many weren't recorded or lost, so they have the title of the 10 Kingdoms. The dynasties during this time are the following: the later Liang Dynasty, Xuanwu Jiedushi, the later Tang Dynasty, the later Jin Dynasty, the later Han Dynasty, and the later Zhou Dynasty. The Song Dynasty was split into northern and southern Song. This dynasty flourished. The agriculture, productive technology improved the output of food, and many crafts became more specialized. Science really took off during this dynasty, especially with gunpowder. The Yuan Dynasty, also called the Mongol Dynasty, was named the Yuan to give the dynasty a Chinese-style administration. Yuan was the first dynasty to make Beijing its capital. At this time, the Mongols wanted to establish their rule over China in every way they could. They even made a revival of Buddhist art. Much of the music and poetry during this dynasty was much more freer. Many historians believe that the Mongols during the Yuan dynasty oppressed the Han, and this led to a revolt. The Ming, a Han dynasty, then took over China. The Ming dynasty was the time of Zheng He's exploration around the world to other countries, trading spices, silks, and porcelains for tropical woods and Western ideals. When a new emperor came into power, China was cut off from the world and entered into isolation that would lead to a gradual decline in China's industries. The Ming dynasty fell to a rebel army. The Qing dynasty was the last dynasty of China. This dynasty helped China grow into what we now know today. Territories expanded and population grew. China imposed on territories once owned by Mongolia, Tibet, Russia, Nepal, and other surrounding countries. Much of the Chinese culture flourished, and many scientific methods were developed. One of the major problems China saw within its own borders was population growth. Outside influences of the West was starting to impose on China toward the end of the dynasty. This broke out, and many famous incidents such as the Opium Wars and the Boxer Rebellion occurred. A few major achievements of the Qing dynasty in Chinese culture was better, more beautiful porcelain, the expansion of literary genres, and musical instruments. After the Qing dynasty fell, China soon became the Republic of China, which later is now known as Communist China.